Starting now, thank you.
Okay. My papers. I gotta get my notes. Sorry for that. I have to wait a minute.
We're live now, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
I'm sorry, a moment. You have to. Well, can't find my papers. I lost them somewhere. Sorry. Right. Sorry. I got it. Thank you. Right. I declare the meeting of the City Council open. This meeting is conducted remotely in accordance with the coronavirus regulations and the remote meetings protocol agreed by the Cabinet, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. I will remind members that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. Can I request you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure there's unnecessary background noise and to help you with the audio and visible quality of the broadcast. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Can I also remind members to ensure that the chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. For the benefit of everyone watching on the live stream, when I invite members to cast their votes on any particular item, they will do so electronically using the voting facility in the chat function room. These votes will be automatically counted and recorded on the system, but individual votes are not identified on the screen, and the chat room poll is not available on all the live stream for public viewing. However, announce the numbers of votes forecast for any against any abstentions before I declare the result. As well as being broadcast live, a recorded version of this remote meeting will be uploaded onto the Council website for viewing as soon as possible. After the meeting, the Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training and purposes within the Council. Thank you. Right. I have received apologies for the absence from the following councillors. Councillor Gail Giles. Are there any other names that need to be recorded? If they are, please do write them down in the chat box and it will be recorded in the minutes. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest at this stage? If any declarations of interest arise during the course of meetings, then members should draw this to my attention by using the raised hand facility or posting a message in the chat box. Thank you. Here come my announcements. I'd like to thank everybody that supported me in my charity walk for Alzheimer's around Tredegar House. I did 10 laps, which is almost 20,000 steps. And it's dear to my heart because my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's and my sister has got dementia, so it's really close to me. Thank you very much. And another thing I'd like to say is, can we have a minute's silence, please, for the Duke of Edinburgh? He recently passed, in respect to the Queen. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Item 2, the minutes of March the 3rd minutes are before us. Are there any points of accuracy?
Mr. Mayor, I have indicated in the chat box. Oh, do you want to go first, Matthew?
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, just 2 points of accuracy. The one is regarding the debate on the M4 Relief Road referendum. And it says on there that Councillor M. Evans was disappointed with the amendment and reminded colleagues that 8% of the area within the Black Route would be untouched. That should read 98% would remain untouched. And the second point, Mr. Mayor, was on the budget debate and comments from councillors, where it's stated that Councillor M. Evans did, however, welcome some of the proposals, such as parking charges. If you recall, I didn't welcome the car parking charges. I welcomed the fact that they weren't going to be implemented. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Matthew. Would you, Anne, would you please make sure that's in the minutes for the next meeting, please, to make sure they're accurate? Thank you.
We'll make those corrections, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 6, revenue budget. Comments from councillors, page 16. Mr. Mayor, I understand the minutes are not verbatim. However, it should respectfully respect the essence of what is being said. And to that point, I would like to move an amendment to the minutes to show that the comments of Councillor Harvey, who said the opposition have not brought...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me,
Point
Phil.
of order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, please, excuse me, Phil. You can't say that, sorry. Sorry, you can't say that. You've got to have to bring it up. These are points of minutes for the accuracy for the minutes.
Yeah,
not
yes.
To be brought up at this time, please.
No, Mr. Mayor, I want them changed for accuracy of the minutes.
Point of order, Mr.
Sorry.
Mayor. Mr. Routley has been told he can't.
Sorry.
If he doesn't understand that, then maybe somebody training's needed.
Excuse me. Listen to what I'm saying, please. Listen. They weren't in the minutes, so they have to bring up some other avenue, please. Not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Ms. Harvey, who probably does need training. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Then I move the minutes as a true record. Is there a seconder, please? Hello?
Second.
Thank you. The minutes have been seconded. For those in favour, indicate by clicking on the voting application in the chat box. I will give all members a short time to cast their votes.
I can't find my chat box because I've only got the little square in the corner.
Mr. Mayor, there's no chat box facility on my machine.
Nor mine.
Joan, you know there's a little thing with a question thing. There's two people. By there you have a little circle. If you press on that, you'll get the app up.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor. I will send a snapshot to councillors Dudley and Watkins. Thank you.
I've got a box come up with forms not anonymous, results shared, and minutes yes or no. I've clicked on yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's correct. Let the mayor proceed now. Thank you very much.
There's two options showing, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have a box showing participants. I haven't got an opportunity to vote.
Mr. Mayor, in terms of the accuracy of the minutes, can I just suggest, unless anyone has got any further objection, that it's been moved and seconded, can you just move to the next item?
Yes, the approval of the minutes is duly carried, okay? Thank you. Right, can you turn your camera off, please, John? Right. Item 3, appointments. Councillor Harvey to introduce this item, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The appointments have been sent through to the proper registering committee, and there's one to be read out, which is, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it correct, Ysgol Cymraeg Bro Tynan. Julie Watkins will become a governor on that school. That's it from me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Any seconder, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll second those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Yeah. Would all councillors please cast their vote by no clicking on the appropriate box in the chat function? I'll give all members a short time to cast their vote before confirming the result. Thank you.
Let's carry it unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
I think, yes, okay. Yes, I think therefore the appointments are duly carried. I can't see it properly, but no one's objecting. Thank you.
Can I just question why Councillor Hughes has asked if you should declare an interest, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Hughes, why are you, about your interest, why are you declaring that? Jason Hughes, Councillor?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought my name had come up in one of those.
No.
That's fine.
It's because Councillor Hughes has gone on to Ravenhouse Trust. It's not a declaration of interest because there's not normally a vote on this part of the agenda. I'll tell you who it is. Councillor Fairweather generally seconds it or whatever, and then we move to the next item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I knew we'd get it right in the end. Thank you. We've got no police matters, so therefore we're going to item 5.
Why haven't we got police matters?
Well, we haven't. That's why, Val.
Oh.
We just not today.
Are
Okay.
they not? Right.
There are no police matters.
Okay.
Members' schedule remuneration. The Chair of the Democratic Services Committee, Councillor Ferris, to friendly report, please. Thank you, Charles. Councillor Ferris.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, I had it down as item 4, but I'm not arguing about numbers. Never mind. Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to move formal approval and adoption of the member schedule of remuneration for the years 2021-2022, as set out in the appendix to the report. The Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales, the IRPW, is a body tasked with setting the remuneration levels for councils in Wales. The IRPW makes determinations in relation to basic and senior salaries and also the rates and conditions for expenses paid by public authorities. The IRPW has now published its annual report for 2021-2022, which is in line with the draft report that we considered at the Democratic Services Committee last November. The IRPW has determined that there should be an increase in line with inflation of £150 to the basic annual salary of all elected members, which increases the basic annual salary to £1,368. This will be backdated to the 1st of April 2021. Senior salaries will also be increased at the same rate of 1.06% in line with inflation. The individual senior salaries are set out in the appendix, and the names of the relevant members will be added to the published scheme once the appointments are confirmed at the Council AGM in May. The amounts of the salaries are fixed by the IRPW, and there is no discretion for the Council to change the figures. There are no further changes to the last year's scheme of allowances. Finally, as requested by the IRPW, can I remember members of their entitlement to claim reimbursement of care costs on an anonymous and confidential basis where they are eligible? Mr. Mayor, I move the recommendations.
Is there a seconder, please?
Happy to second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. Are there any comments on this proposal? Right, thank you. Would all councillors please cast their votes by no clicking on the appropriate box in the chat function? I've given all members a short time to cast their vote before confirming the result. Thank you.
I think that's clearly carried, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, carried, yeah. But just to let you know that Councillor Joan Watkins didn't have a vote on it, okay? Thank you. Okay, therefore the report is duly approved. Thank you. Item 6, National Non-Domestic Rates, COVID-19 Discretionary Rate Relief Schemes. The Leader will present this report, please. Thank you. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The COVID-19 pandemic has created difficult trading conditions for many city businesses. In response to this, Welsh Government has provided measures that are intended to help businesses that are affected from not being able to trade as they usually would do. This report sets out 2 rate relief schemes that directly assist city businesses. The first scheme is an extension of the Retail, Leisure and Hospitality Rate Relief Scheme into 2021-22, removing the requirement to pay business rates for qualifying ratepayers for a second year. The second scheme is the Enhanced Leisure and Hospitality Rate Relief Scheme. Introduced late in the financial year, this scheme specifically assists larger leisure and hospitality businesses, and again removes the need to pay business rates for both 2020-21 and 2021-22. These schemes require council approval since rate relief is given under the discretionary rate relief provisions. As both schemes were received late in the financial year and with the need to act quickly to ensure that businesses benefited straight away, the schemes were approved by myself as the Leader under emergency provisions. This enabled ratepayers to have the worry of paying their rates in 2021-22 removed, and the rate relief was swiftly applied to their rate accounts and notifications issued before the first instalment was due in April. This report, Mr Mayor, seeks formal retrospective approval and ratification of the resolutions agreeing to adopt the schemes. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a seconder, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor, happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Jevons. There are comments on a proposal. I think Councillor Mikdad Ali-Army, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I read the report, Mr Mayor, and I really felt quite pleased about it all, and especially about the decision to be taken even ahead of council to help businesses with this very important business rate relief.
Yes. And
I was pleased further that this is also happening for the coming financial year. Now, we all know, sort of the feelings of joy yesterday with people for the first time being invited back to many of our hospitality businesses.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, sorry, on a point of order, with further restrictions, I don't think we should be mentioning anything about Welsh Government or hospitality.
No, excuse me. It's not, sorry, Mikdad Ali-Army, Councillor, please. We are nothing political, please. Don't mention the Welsh Government, please. Thank you. Don't mention anything political, please. Thank you.
Can I continue, Mr Mayor?
Yes, but don't mention anything political.
Well, if I may just explain, the reason I mentioned that is because it was in the report, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to say government support, if that is acceptable.
Yes, that's fine.
Have a ruling from the head of law and standards.
That's fine, Mr Mayor. It's not a political issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The report makes it clear. Actually, it is the UK Welsh Government, so I'm happy to say government. And I think as a council, as a community, it's good to know, and it's good to welcome help that come to our support after so many years when we have not, we've had to cut back. So for our businesses, it was great to see all this help, and it has come at a timely in a timely manner as well, with the decision taken ahead of today's council for next year's non-domestic rate. So I would like personally, I would like to express thanks to our governments for making this help available to our businesses. A year ago, quite honestly, 12 months ago, we did not know where this thing was taking us. We did not know what's going to happen to our economy. We did not know what's going to happen to our hospitality industry. But after 12 months, we are in a better place. And I believe we will be in a better place still after this help being given to our businesses. The reason I'm mentioning it also, Mr. Mayor, is because I've seen comment on social media that decry the help from the governments. But quite honestly, without the scheme of help that we've had all over the country, Wales and the UK, I think our hospitality industry, our leisure industry would have faced a far more difficult time than what we have. So I'd like to be on record. I would like to record my thanks to all the help that we as a council and as a community have received from our governments on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mikdad. Thank you. Right.
Councillor Fowler was indicated, Mr Mayor.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Fowler, sorry. I just spotted it now. Sorry, I do apologise. Councillor David Fowler.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
I really want just to echo what Mick Dad has said there, but what's really important is that the council advertises this properly so that businesses are aware of it. And I just hope that that has been done and that a good number of businesses have now applied for this help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Would all councillors please cast their vote now by clicking on the appropriate box in the chat function. I will give all members a short time to cast their vote before confirming the result. Thank you. Mick Dan, can you turn your video off, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Will do.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Mick Dan, I'm sorry.
No worry.
I think we're showing a good response for the vote, so I'll therefore the annual report is duly approved. Thank you. Item 7, Pay and Reward Policy 2021 to 22. The leader to present this report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council's Pay and Reward Policy for the Workforce is an annual report that requires adoption by Council. This policy sets out the internal mechanisms for remunerating Council officers and provides any changes since the last adoption. The policy was last approved in November 2020, and as such there are no proposed changes to it this year. However, I would like to highlight the annual gender pay gap that will also be published on the Council's website. I'm pleased to report that the mean pay gap has decreased for a second year to 1.92%, from last year's reported 3.6%. I reported in November that the 2019 median gap had closed entirely, as the analysis of the data showed that the median point of hourly pay was the same for both men and women. There is a very slight change to this, and there is a median pay gap of 0.57% for 2020. Our gender pay gap continues to compare favourably with other councils across Wales and the UK average of 17%. So the Wales and UK average of 17%, I think, is not just does it compare favourably, Mr. Mayor, actually that is an outstanding reflection on the commitment to equality within this authority. However, we will maintain efforts to eliminate the pay gap between men and women employed by the Council. The Council is committed to conducting equal pay audits on a 3-yearly basis, and this is due to be carried out in this calendar year. This concludes this year's annual update, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a seconder, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to formally second that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. Thank you. Yep. Can we have the vote now, please? I think, therefore, the annual report is duly approved. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 9, questions to the Leader of the Council. We now move to open questions to leave the council. Questions will be asked.
I think, Mr. Mayor, there's a standards committee item.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I got so many papers here, sorry. I do apologise, Gareth. Right, item 8, sorry. Item 8. The committee met on April 15th, 2021, where it was recommended that the council adopt a new employee code of conduct and its inclusion in the constitution. If I can move this on behalf of the Chair of Standards and invite Councillor Hourahan to second, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very pleased to second, and I think it's an exceptional code of practice, and it's showing great improvement on the previous one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
It's been moved and seconded, Mr. Mayor. Do you want to put it to the vote?
Yeah, put it to the vote, please. Yes. Thank you. I thought that. Yes. I apologise. Thank you. Sorry about that. A bit of a nuisance today, this. I think the annual report is duly approved. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Item 9, questions to the Leader of the Council. We now move to open questions for the Leader of the Council. Questions will be asked in the ballot list order sent out earlier today. Before we start, does the Leader have any announcements to make, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to begin by providing colleagues with an update on the Leisure Centre project. You will recall that last month I updated you on the proposed new Leisure and Wellbeing Centre located in the heart of our city. I'm pleased to confirm that we've now successfully secured £7 million of Welsh Government Transforming Towns funding towards the project. The purpose-built centre will provide state-of-the-art facilities for residents and will also pave the way for the redevelopment of the existing Newport Centre site to provide a brand new further education facility for Coleg Gwent. Final proposals and designs are now being worked on ahead of the submission of a full planning application expected later this year. And I'd really like to thank the people of Newport for the way that they've engaged with the consultation on that particular project. We had an outstanding level of responses. I'd also like to share with you colleagues an update on the Transporter Bridge. This is another one of our flagship projects, and it's been boosted by some very positive news. We've received a £1.5 million grant from Welsh Government. This has been confirmed for the transformation project. The funds will complement the £8.75 million awarded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the £1 million of capital funding that the council also committed to the project. We very much look forward to opening the new and improved facilities in 2023. I'd also like to provide an update, if I may, Mr. Mayor, on the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. As you may be aware, our teams have been working hard to introduce 20-mile-an-hour speed limits across a number of residential streets in 6 of our city's wards. These measures are being introduced to help improve safety within residential streets and will also support people to feel confident choosing sustainable travel options such as walking and cycling, something that we're actively promoting through our active travel schemes. And you may recall, Mr. Mayor, that I've previously asked local residents, citizens of Newport, to engage in our consultation on the next phase of our active travel scheme. So thanks again to our residents for engaging with that. Speaking of sustainable travel, Mr. Mayor, I'm really pleased to confirm that Newport is set to benefit from almost £10 million of Welsh Government funding to improve a number of active travel routes across the city. The funding sees over £8 million allocated to the construction of a new footbridge at Devon Place, linking it across the main railway line to Queensway. A further £100,000 has been allocated to improve the canal link path between Bettis and Malpas. There's £61,000 to help develop active travel paths at Liswerry Pond, providing an off-road option that will link with the surrounding area and the Newport International Sports Village. And I think that in itself is an excellent development, Mr. Mayor, and opens up so many opportunities for our citizens. We'll also receive £751,000 in core grants, which will go towards developing new schemes identified as part of the Active Travel Network Map Review. And a big thank you again to the public for engaging with that consultation. Sticking with sustainability for the time being, Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to share with colleagues that last month we were incredibly proud to launch Wales' first electric powered refuse collection vehicle. So this is a great achievement for Newport, the first in Wales, and it's being used on collection rounds across the city, but in particular will service areas such as Killeen, where we've designated as a priority in terms of reducing emissions to help to improve air quality levels. The vehicle will reduce carbon emissions by approximately 25 to 30 tonnes per year compared to a standard non-electric vehicle. That's going to make such a contribution, Mr. Mayor. And it forms part of a wider project to replace the council's existing vehicles with eco-friendly alternatives and to become a carbon neutral organisation by 2030. Now, there's another new scheme that we're pleased to be working on with partners, and that's to provide affordable homes for people at risk of homelessness. Working with Link Cymru, we've agreed to lease part of Hill Street car park for a supported housing project that will feature 12 self-contained flats. They'll provide important move-on accommodation for people who've been in temporary accommodation in a location that's close to essential services. Link Cymru will manage the tenancies and support given to residents, enabling them to have a more stable and secure life. The aim is to help them obtain longer-term accommodation where they could live independently. Initial work is being progressed using permitted development rights, and consultation with neighbours has begun ahead of the submission of a full planning application. Mr. Mayor, it's also important that I make reference to the UK Community Renewal Fund. And as colleagues may be aware, applications to the Community Renewal Fund are now being invited for projects here in Newport. The fund aims to support people and communities most in need across the UK, creating opportunities to trial new approaches and innovative ideas at a local level. As a council, we'll coordinate the submission for projects in Newport, so I'd encourage you to support local applications. Full details about the scheme are available on our website, Mr. Mayor, and the closing date is Friday the 21st of May. I'd like also finally, Mr. Mayor, to give my personal thanks to the head teacher of St Andrew's School, Joe Giles, the outstanding Joe Giles, his senior leadership team, and all of the colleagues that support them within the school. As you may be aware, St Andrews was faced with a challenge recently, as there are some works required to the main school building, and so the juniors had to be relocated. Thanks to our colleagues at Newport Live and at Newport North for transforming the Connect Centre into a fantastic school facility, and I was delighted to receive an invitation to go along to the school and meet the senior leadership team with the deputy leader, who of course has a close affinity with the school as the chair of governors. Really delighted to go along and meet the pupils and see what an outstanding transformation has been made in such a short time. So thank you to all of our partners and colleagues for their contribution to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. We will now start to the questions to the Leader, please. I think Councillor Matthew Evans, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sure it'd be a wonderful opportunity for you perhaps to go down and thank all the people who've done all the hard work at the St Andrew's School. Mr. Mayor, my group have submitted a number of questions at any time and to Council. and an increasing number of them have been ruled as operational for officers to respond. For the benefit of members of the public watching this, or indeed the press, that means they are not published for you to see, and Cabinet members are not accountable for the answers to these questions. For this evening, for instance, Councillor Routley asked Councillor Mayer, when members' electronic devices, laptops, iPads are upgraded, are the previous electronic devices being refurbished and offered to schools or community groups? I would have thought that was a simple enough question to answer and very much part of his portfolio. We've raised similar concerns before when it comes to press releases. Anything you consider to be a good news story, it's the leader of the council or cabinet member, yet anything embarrassing, and it's a council spokesperson. So when are you and your cabinet going to take responsibility for your actions?
Thank you, Councillor Matthew.
Well, thank you, Councillor Evans. Glad to see you finally got to a question at the end. In terms of taking responsibility, as a previous leader of the council, I'm sure that you'll be aware that in terms of the QAAT responses from cabinet members, they're in relation to policies and strategies, the strategic approach. Operational decisions that are made by heads of service or senior managers within the service area are exactly that, delegated to those officers, and therefore those officers will provide the response. There's nothing hidden there. It's open, transparent. Everything that we do is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, as many of your colleagues know full well. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to say that we are indeed accountable for all of our actions and open and transparent with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I listened to the cabinet meetings and it's like a glorified love fest. I can't remember the last time I heard anybody admit they needed to step up to the plate or take some responsibility, and it's always somebody else's fault. There was another question for council today from Councillor Watkins about the training budget for councillors. She's set at £13,000 a year apparently, and how much has been spent in the life of this current administration and on what? And again, we've been told it's operational and will be answered by an officer. Now, I can understand officers needing to agree who attends what, but surely the cabinet member should be answering these questions. As we've seen earlier, they get £30,000 a year, and with that should come the responsibility. So I'll ask again, who is running the council, you or the officers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Evans. And I'll repeat my previous response, Councillor Evans, which is very clearly that cabinet members take strategic decisions. We're responsible and accountable for policy, and officers of the council take operational decisions. As a previous leader of the council, you'll be very well aware of that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Can Councillor Kevin Whitehead, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to sustain and hold on the my laptop. It keeps trying to crash. I'm still in. Good evening, all. Not to sound like Dixon of Dot Green, leader. My question is, in the recent budget, on which all sides of the council acknowledged had some very good parts to it, the council voted to invest 500,000 that's £500,000 in, and I quote, a COVID community recovery fund to support community groups in playing their part in a well-being focused, responsible recovery. As independents are all about community. I know communities have been scared more than most. Can I ask how much of this £500,000 has been distributed and to who? I may well have a supplementary for you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. None of it's been distributed yet because the process will be for community groups to apply, and we're establishing that process. I don't want to overlap into your potential supplementary question there, but I can explain. So colleagues may be aware that very recently we participated in a participatory budgeting process. That was actually funded by Health, and it gave an opportunity for community groups to submit bids and those bids were then assessed and they were actually voted on by other members of the community. So it was about real community participation and engagement. Now that's what we envisage for the community, COVID Community Recovery Fund. This is not a fund where the allocations should be determined by people who were removed from those communities. It's an opportunity for people from communities to bid for the funding to support groups, and it will be members of the communities that make the decision on those bids. Does that help you?
Yeah, to a point, yeah. Obviously, my supplementary is, you know, will you promise, for example, or give us a time frame that even the end of the week details about to apply for the money, clearly marked on the council website, backed up by press, social media coverage. We want to work with you, helping to rebuild the recovery for all. And I suppose it does, from the word on the street, is not just for those at the top, it's across the whole spectrum of communities.
Absolutely. If I may, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely, Councillor Whitehead. The whole purpose of this is that this is about grassroots recovery. This is about communities and people in communities, and all of those small groups that couldn't function during this the COVID lockdown period particularly. And we've all experienced those groups within our own communities that for whatever reason haven't been able to open, and we recognise very much that that's impacted on the very small income that they may receive, and it's also impacted on the individuals themselves who are part of these groups in terms of their well-being. And what we want, and certainly what this money aims to do, is to support that well-being by enabling these groups to get back up and running. But there may well be new groups that are formed as part of COVID that may be applying for this as well. It's certainly not top-down. This is very much about grassroots. Officers are still working on that distribution formula, because the one thing that we wanted to do was get the feedback from the participatory budgeting exercise, just to check that it was possible to engage in this way, and that's been outstanding. I've got to say, it's been truly outstanding. So that's the model we'll be following, and as soon as that's established and the process is established, we'll be publicising that as widely as we can, and of course we look to all of our councillor colleagues to help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kevin Whitehead. Councillor Carmel Townsend, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Leader, with the appointment of the Chief Executive in July last year...
Excuse me, can you address the question to me, please?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, yeah. With the appointment of the Chief Executive in July last year, will the Leader provide an update on the recruitment of the 2 vacant Strategic Director posts for Place and People?
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Of course, thank you, Councillor Townsend, for your participation in that process last year as well, and thank you to colleagues. In order to provide an update, what I can say is that the Chief Executive has been looking at the structure of the organisation and looking at these posts, and she will be bringing a report to us soon, which will help to provide an update on that situation. So thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carmel Townsend. Councillor Jason Hughes, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I read with interest the One Newport briefing that's been circulated to the public recently. Can the Leader provide Council with an update on the work of the Public Service Board?
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Hughes. Thank you, colleagues. As you may well be aware, the Public Service Board is actually a statutory requirement, and it was established by the Wellbeing of Future Generations legislation that was introduced in 2015. Newport, I think, is pretty unique in terms of its membership of the Public Service Board, and I'll share a little bit of that with you, because that's important in terms of understanding the work of the board and an update in terms of what it's done so far. So as you'll know, the board has established a wellbeing plan, and the objectives of the wellbeing plan align to our objectives of our corporate plan. So we do have the golden thread and that connectivity in terms of what we do. Within this, there are a number of priorities, a number of strands that delegated leads, so from the board membership, work on in order to progress these for the benefit of the citizens of Newport. Now, what's particularly unique about our Public Service Board is that in addition to our statutory partners, we also have non-statutory invited partners around the table. So we have their representatives from Public Health Wales, from the Probation Service, from the registered social landlords within the city, from Newport Live, and we also have representatives from our Youth Council as members of the Public Service Board. In addition to this, we've also got representation from Gwent Association of Voluntary Organisations and the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they come together with us, with the statutory partners, to work together on projects that will help to benefit Newport. And the participatory budgeting is such a scheme, so that's come through the PSB with our health partners, and is something that we've begun to work on together and seen such positive results, absolutely positive results. Now, it would be remiss of me without talking about the work of the Public Service Board, just to share with you some of the priorities. So we've got a skills theme that we've got some objectives, and we've also got some sustainability themes that we've got objectives under, and importantly, and really important to this, is the work of the Safer Newport aspect of this, so our community safety partnership element of that too. And of course, we've also got the Newport offer, which looks at the broader aspects of the opportunities and life and experience of living here in Newport as a city. So all of that work is ongoing, and we're really pleased to report our work back to you. I'm glad that you liked the bulletin, Councillor Hughes. I think it's tremendously accessible in that format, and it really gives everybody an opportunity to see the work of the PSB. So that's just an overview of the PSB and the work that we do.
Thank you, Leader. Mr. Mayor, can I ask a supplementary? Thank you. So how does the green and safe spaces and sustainable travel priorities then align with the work of the local authority?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Well, as you'll be aware, one of our priorities within the city and within the local authority is sustainable development. And we work very hard on this, and this is something that we're very keen to take forwards. In fact, on the subject of sustainable development, I'm delighted to share with you that both the Cabinet and the corporate management team have all jointly undertaken carbon literacy training, which enables us to become accredited as an authority. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing around that to ensure that everybody's aware and informed of that. So on the sustainable development aspects of this and how that links to our priorities, one of the key things that we've done as partners with our Public Service Board colleagues is to sign up to the Sustainable Travel Charter, and this is something that we're asking all public sector organisations to sign up to in Gwent. We're a significant employer across the whole of Gwent, and what we want to do is really work to encourage and incentivise employees within organisations to focus on their wellbeing and seek alternative ways of accessing the workplace. We're also, there are such great examples of this, we're also working closely with our partners, Natural Resources Wales, on green infrastructure projects. Now, Cabinet colleagues and councillors will recall that in the budget we identified a significant sum of money to support us in terms of our investment in sustainability activities in future. If you may recall, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Hughes, we made a commitment to establishing a green recovery. So as part of that, one of the projects that we're working on with Natural Resources Wales is a green infrastructure project. and colleagues may well have seen this on other websites and things like that, but we're actually looking at sustainable drainage and greening the city centre. So that's one of the things that one of the projects that connects to us through the Public Service Board that helps to benefit the citizens of Newport. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The time is up for members' question time, Sir Leader. Please, any questions you have, can you have them written to the Leader, please? You get an answer. Thank you. Thank you. Item 9, questions to Cabinet members. Councillor Watkins, your question to the Cabinet member, please.
Mr. Mayor, I put several questions in. Could you tell me which Cabinet member, please?
It's Councillor Truman.
And it was with regard to
the poor air quality, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, John.
Given recent rulings with regard to the impact of poor air quality and what that impact is having on health, and given the very sad death of the little girl in London recently attributable to air pollution, what plans do this council have in place to take positive action with regard to the air quality in the one-way system through Killeen? Given that this council has done years of monitoring which haven't resulted in action to change the situation so far, I'd very much welcome your reply, Councillor Truman.
Thank you, Councillor John Watkins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank Councillor Watkins for asking this question. One of the issues highlighted by the coroner in his report on the tragic death of this poor girl in London was the need to raise public awareness of the impact that air pollution has on public health. Therefore, I hope that this will help to get the message across to the wider community that action needs to be taken, because increased monitoring and regulation will not of itself be sufficient to address these environmental issues. The Council's senior scientific officer recently attended an air quality workshop where he was able to talk with the girl's mother, who died in London recently, about the challenges in getting air quality to improve. But raising public awareness and engaging with the public will be a critical part of this council strategy for dealing with air quality, both in Killeen and other areas of the city. I would also stress that the council can only act within current regulations governing the management of air quality standards, and it is for the legislators and policymakers to establish a clear framework for this work to be carried out. Turning to the specific issues in relation to Killeen, then it is a complete fallacy to say that the extensive monitoring work carried out by the environmental health officers has resulted in little or no action so far. Current positive action in Killeen includes a number of measures have been taken to address air quality issues arising from vehicle emissions in Killeen. For example, deployment of electric refuse collection vehicles on routes in Killeen, deployment of electric buses on routes in Killeen, a continuation of the EcoStar scheme, which facilitates less fuel use in fleets travelling around Newport, including Killeen, using the development control process to require ultra-low energy vehicles infrastructure at new developments, e.g. Electrical charging units at the Redrow development on the university site, using development opportunities to require mitigation measures such as anti-idling controls for vehicles, e.g. anti-idling of construction traffic serving refurbishment work at Charles Williams School, engaging with the community of Killeen wherever possible in relation to concerns, planning work and pending projects, e.g. concerns raised by the local community about routes of construction traffic to and from the university development site. Routing has resulted in additional monitoring. Air quality issues are inextricably linked to wider initiatives regarding climate change and sustainability, and this work will also have beneficial impacts on all of the Newport area, including Clean. Future pending action includes air quality annual progress reports will be prepared with more accurate data. The current data for 2020 is clearly unreliable because traffic journeys have reduced significantly due to COVID restrictions. However, while people continue to work from home, this will continue to have a positive impact on air quality. The ongoing work on the sustainable travel strategy and the pending air quality action plan will also help to address air quality. The air quality action plan will be refreshed in 2021-22 with a view to identifying interventions for all air quality management areas, such as Clean. This will complement the work being done under the Sustainable Travel Plan. Purchase and development of real-time monitors for 3 air quality management street canyons, including Clean, where exceedances of the air quality objective are observed in a 75-metre section of High Street. This will provide data on peak pollution times, which will feed into interventions that are considered as part of the Air Quality Action Plan process. Additional pollutants in the form of particulates will also be measured by these monitors. Setting up of air quality groups for at least 6 of the air quality management areas, including Clean. Piloting of e-taxis should include e-taxi activity in Clean. Scoping of funding opportunities through Cardiff City Region Fund to look at problem street canyons. That's equipment for those who don't know what canyons is, like Clean High Street, and engineering solutions to mitigate air quality impacts. And finally, these are just examples of the work that has been already carried out or planned. Mr. Mayor, but we do need to engage with and secure the cooperation of the public in order to deliver our air quality objectives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Truman.
Supplementary question, Mr. Mayor?
I'm finished. I'm going to ask you that now, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Watkins, you have a supplementary question.
I do indeed, please. Councillor Truman, whilst I welcome these initiatives with the electric buses and the electric waste disposable unit that will come through the village on 1 day a week only, it concerns me greatly, and I find it quite disrespectful that you don't make a comment, to the effect that the public generally are not aware of their responsibility. I'm quite confident that everybody here in Killeen is aware of their responsibility. I would also ask, do you really think that electric cars are affordable at this point in time and will be affordable for some time to come? Because I think for the vast majority of our residents, they will not be affordable. So I ask, finally, all this monitoring, all this addressing, it isn't really taking us anywhere, because you have mentioned the canyon, which exists and cannot be changed as we go through our village of Killeen. So do you not think it time, Councillor Truman, that you did something positive for the people of Killeen and looked to providing an alternative access into our village? Because everyone knows, including members of the council, that that is the only way forward which will improve health and well-being in terms of poor air quality. Thank you.
Councillor Watkins, when you ask the question, talk to me, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry,
Mr.
Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank
my
you.
sincere apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, first of all, on the issue of the cost, the price of cars, electric cars, that's not for this council to decide or even comment on. That's a government plan, that is. So I've got no comment on that myself, because I'm not in a position to give you a proper answer for that. But when I said that people need to be more aware, the whole world needs to be more aware. That's a general point I'm making, because we're in a bad situation now. We only look at the weather forecast, look at the weather we've actually had and something needs to be done. People are aware of it. We're all aware of it, but governments who legislate for these things got to be more active and promptly. Now, as I say, they need to look after this world we'll leave eventually for those who are coming after us. So yes, the public are aware, but it's governments can do things about it. Councils can only do so much, and we're doing that. It's all evidence-based, and that's what we're doing, as I say, and we'll continue to do that. But as I say, if we want anything like sort of changes, it's got to be done by government. We can only do so much as local authorities, and I got to be honest, we're doing as much as we can in Killeen, and we'll continue to do much more. We're not there yet, but we're doing all that we can. But Killeen has always been, well, the Romans were around then, weren't they? And the roads, particularly in High Street, that's the highest region, as you know, and everyone knows that in Killeen, in that particular area. And the wall is the wall, you know. So that's one of the challenges. That's one of the challenges in that one-way system, that wall. But as I say, we'll continue to monitor everything we can. We're getting as much equipment as we can. We're using it in Killeen, a lot of it. And we put it
Councillor Truman, your time's up, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Thank you, Councillor Truman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Question number 2 to the Cabinet Member of Sustainable Development. Councillor Watkins, what is your question to the Cabinet Member, please?
Is it with regard to 106 monies, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Right. The development recently undertaken, or well, now ongoing here in Killeen on the former campus site, has generated substantial Section 106 monies. Does the Cabinet Member, Mr. Mayor, agree with me that the community should have a voice in the decision?
Councillor Watkins, the question has got to be, as I'm reading it here, it should be said as I'm reading it.
Right. Should the community have a voice in the decision-making process as to how such monies are spent? And if so, why is that not the process currently in place? Furthermore, does she agree all these Section 106 monies should be spent entirely on innovations or improvements solely within the ward where the monies are generated? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Deb Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Watkins. I believe for the benefit of council, I need to clarify. Planning obligations are legal obligations that are entered into to mitigate the impacts of a development proposal. This can be via a planning agreement that is entered into under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act, hence the use of the term Section 106 monies. But I need to be clear, this was introduced following an Act of Parliament that was laid down and agreed in 1990. This is a fundamental piece of legislation which has to be adhered to by the person or developer who is interested in the land, as well as the planning authority. Planning obligations that run with the land are legally binding and are enforceable. Should the council spend the contributions on infrastructure or services not within the scope of the legal agreement, or it fails to spend the contribution within the agreed timeframe, the council will be liable to return the contributions to the developer. Therefore, it is important for all members to have some understanding of the Section 106 process and the parameters the council must work within to negotiate, secure and spend Section 106 contributions. Therefore, Councillor John Richards and I, as Chair of Planning, have agreed to and are organising training for all councillors, which will be put forward and put into our diaries in the very near future. And in response to the second part of your question, Councillor Watkins, the contributions that are required by the developer have to be used to address an identified need rather than a wish list. It is important to note that proposed contributions are outlined within the reports which are determined by the Planning Committee, and those reports are published in advance of the meetings. A good example, as previously mentioned, is the Killeen Campus application, and this contained over 5 pages of discussion on the Section 106 contributions. And in that document, terms were agreed. These details are very much in the public domain, and the Decision and Planning Committee takes into account not only officers' recommendations on these matters, but also recommendations and representations made to that committee. There was every opportunity for residents in Killeen to propose and make suggestions at that planning stage. And looking at that documentation that's been published and is in the public domain, these were duly noted. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, supplementary question, please.
Yeah, I've got to ask you. Then I'll ask you if you want one. But excuse me a moment. Councillor Watkins, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm very interested to hear the councillor mention identified need. I've listened to the answer that she's given, and there's a very clear identified need for how these monies might be spent in Killeen. There's absolutely nothing of interest to interest and to involve and develop our young people in Killeen. We have an extremely poor children's playground near the comprehensive school, well past its sell-by date, and we have absolutely nothing in this village for our youngsters, our teenagers, to get involved in and to enjoy. So there is a very clear identified need, and I would hope she would agree with that in terms of our young people and our children, this money needs to be spent very carefully on activities which will engage them and improve their lives. Will she agree that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do agree, Councillor Watkins. And in fact, if you look at the documentations that's been published and was agreed at planning stage, you will find that with Redrow, it has been agreed that £1 million will be spent on our Killeen schools for improvement upkeep. I've counted within the documentation legislation that agrees for 5 different play and recreation areas and sporting areas, which include rugby, and there will be there'll be 5 different aspects looking at different generational needs, and that's been carefully considered what sums of money should have been spent on them. That will certainly improve the health and well-being of young people and enable them to feel active and get them off the streets to do something positive. You can also see that within that documentation has been agreed funding for sustainable travel. As Councillor Truman recently pointed out, that includes electric charging points. There's also agreement to widen a public right-of-way. There's the introduction of a zebra crossing, 2 new bus stops, a new pedestrian and visibility upgrades, as well as the repair and making good of the listed buildings that will be on that site. So I believe that contribution that will come from Redrow has been carefully considered, and the planning committee have approved those recommendations take forward, which will certainly benefit the residents of Killeen. It's about Killeen and for Killeen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Thank you. Question 3, Cabinet Member, Leisure and Culture. Councillor Morris, your question to the Cabinet Member, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, what outreach measures have been taken to try to engage with gangs of youngsters that have been gathering on street corners and outside shops throughout the pandemic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Our teams have gone out and engaged with the youngsters. They have done what they can, given that we're in a lockdown. Our community centres won't be opening until next week because we have to follow the law, which is passed down from one government to another to us. And legally, we've been in a lockdown. Nothing is open. Gyms are not open. There was nothing we could do. Children of a certain need have been looked after. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Morris, have you a supplementary question, please?
I most certainly do, yes. We have not engaged whatsoever. We have youngsters throughout this pandemic have stood on street corners nothing to do, nowhere to go, mainly without masks, visors, without social distancing. And I will ask again, did we engage with them to try to point out the error of their ways and the danger they were putting themselves and other people in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for your supplementary.
You've just Councillor Morris, not Mr. Councillor.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Morris. As you have previously just listed all of what you're talking about, they're all policing issues. We have no right to tell anybody to put a mask on. We have no legislation gifted to us to tell anybody not to stand on a street corner or cause antisocial behaviour. There was an influx of antisocial behaviour in my ward, Councillor Morris, so I engaged with the police and we have a Section 48 dispersal order on our estate for the weekend. I'm afraid there's nothing else we can do when it's in the hands of the police for them that got the legislation to deal with it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Thank you. Question 4, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member, City Services. Councillor Roatley, your question to the Cabinet Member, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Cabinet Member. Following the event of the 23rd of December, the subject is the flooding subject. It was sorry, can I start again? The flooding event of the 23rd of December is subject to a Section 19 investigation, and the local storage of sandbags initiative, as previously discussed. Could you please update the council on these two subjects?
Thank you, Councillor Jevons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Roatley. In answer to the first piece of your question, the Section 19 investigation is currently underway, together with an inquiry being held by National Resources Wales into causation and contributory factors for the flooding event within the eastern catchment of the city. When findings are finalised and received, these will be published on the council website. As to your second part, local authorities have no duty to provide sandbags to the public. However, Newport City Council and South Wales Fire and Rescue often support residents at time of flooding. At my request, officers are currently reviewing options for some localised storage for sandbags at strategic sites, and I will announce further details when I'm ready. Businesses, farm and agricultural landowners need to ensure they have their own flood plans in place, and National Resources Wales can provide further advice on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jevons. Councillor Roatley, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes, following on from that, it was good to speak with yourself and to speak with the officers concerning the events of the 23rd of December, and it certainly caught everybody out. There was a massive shortage of sandbags in the rural area. The Telford Street depot was not open for people to get sandbags. We couldn't deliver sandbags. And so what we're asking for here in Langstone, and I dare say there are other areas of Newport as well, we have identified farmland, such as Ford Farm on the Mega Road, that will safely store localized sandbags so residents can prepare in advance, or even on the day of such a flooding event, would be able to go and access safely sandbags to help and try and prevent flooding to their property. I know you will agree that this initiative actually releases the council to do even a more proactive approach to flooding when events of the 23rd are repeated. And make no mistake about it, events of the 23rd will be repeated. What we have to do is to make sure that we are advanced in what we do, making small improvements and giving the people of Langstone a bit of hope that if anything happens again, at least they'll be able to access the very basis of protection, the sandbags. So let us help you and create these distribution centres. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Councillor Oakley. Thank you, Councillor Jevons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowley, for your supplementary. We have already identified some sites, some of those being within your ward, but more work is being done to obtain other suitable locations. Once this is complete, work will commence to draft a policy and agreements with all those that accept. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Councillor Jevons. Thank you, Councillor Oakley. That concludes the business set out on the agenda. The date for the next council meeting is the AGM on Tuesday, the 11th of May. I declare the meeting closed. Good night, all.
Bye, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good night.
And thank you all for having